Hello there, and welcome to CityLine. Yep, we're zooming from my kitchen into your home or office, and it's always a pleasure and a privilege to be with you. We have a great hour ahead of us. Later on, we'll be talking with Grit City Trees. Did you know we had Grit City Trees? Well, we do. And we have help in terms of planting them and also financial assistance. Forterra will be here to talk about conservation and investment in the Hilltop community. They have recently developed the corner where Fab 5 is, and it is beautiful. So you definitely want to hang in there for that segment. League of Women Voters of Tacoma Pierce County is here. Cynthia will be here to talk about some of the new initiatives that they are working on and how they are lowering barriers to make sure that all of us can exercise our right to vote. The Humane Society will be here with our Pet of the Week. And with me right now are two people that I'm actually seeing more than I'm seeing anybody else right now. And that has a lot to do with our community. We're going to talk about the Eviction Moratorium and also get a legislative update. Please join me in welcoming back Lori Davenport. You are the Director of Development and Outreach for Tacoma Pro Bono. Welcome, my dear.
Thank you, Amanda. We're so happy to be here.
It's great to have you here. And yeah, like we said, we like that urban background behind you.
Couldn't get more urban than our location. Nope.
It really doesn't, unless Lori is sketching in Wright Park, which she does quite often.
Yes.
Mark Morzal, you sleepy man, you are the managing attorney for the Housing Justice Program. And the reason why I say sleepy is because you can get by on 5 hours of sleep, which is amazing.
It's amazing, isn't it, Amanda? It's good to see you again.
It's good to see you as well. So let's jump in. Mark, my first kind of question for you, because every time I have you and Lori on, we kind of recap where we were, and then we talk about what's changed, and then what to expect. So Governor Inslee recently issued a new bridge proclamation about the eviction moratorium. Did the moratorium end, or is it still in effect, Mark? And how does the CDC moratorium fit in also?
That's a great question. So the simplest way of thinking about it is that the moratorium did end. The moratorium ended on June 30th. That is officially over. Prior to the moratorium ending, the Washington State Legislature passed several laws relating to housing, residential housing, including House Bill 1236 and Senate Bill 5160. In order to get to House Bill 1236 and Senate Bill 5160, once the moratorium ended, then the governor issued what's called a bridge proclamation. That's effective from July 1st until the end of September. And this bridge is quite literally meant to transition that period from the old into the new and not make it so abrupt. To start transitioning into Senate Bill 5160 and the protections that tenants have. The second part of your question about the CDC moratorium, that's entirely different. That's the federal CDC moratorium, which was issued by the president, and that is in effect now until October 30th. So that was issued on August 3rd, and is in effect until October 3rd.
Well said. So let's talk about those tenants who owe rent due to COVID. Are they still protected?
Yeah, it's a huge question, not just for tenants, but for landlords alike. And yes, tenants still do have protections, and they have protections in two different ways. The first one is under the bridge moratorium, which requires a certain amount of additional process for landlords to do prior to seeking an eviction for non-payment of rent that was due during COVID. And those additional protections include the landlord has to offer a tenant a reasonable repayment plan. If the landlord and tenant cannot reach a reasonable repayment plan, the landlord has to proceed through a process called the Eviction Resolution Pilot Program, which is known as the ERPP. So those protections exist in the bridge proclamation. And so those provide some protections to tenants right there, some additional process that landlords have to do. On the federal side of things, we've mentioned the CDC moratorium. That provides additional protections for tenants and actually stops the eviction process for tenants whose income individually is under $99,000 a year and had decreased income during the COVID period. And it's not necessarily because they had COVID, but any of those ramifications that arose through COVID. The CDC moratorium could press the pause button on those evictions until October 3rd. So some of these evictions can proceed under the bridge proclamation, and some of them are paused under the federal CDC proclamation, or moratorium, I should say. That's more officially a moratorium.
Wow. So Lori, given that, there's a couple of options here, and I'm so grateful for the two of you that can make this feel plain speak. What is your best advice right now for tenants who owe rent and landlords who want to get paid?
First of all, apply for rental assistance. Pierce County is, I'm thinking, I've heard this in a couple of places, we are the place in the whole country that has been the first to really roll out rental assistance to people who live here who need help. We are doing a fantastic job. Human Services is just awesome. So apply. Now, that doesn't mean it's going to happen immediately. It takes, I don't know where we are exactly right now, but it's a couple of months. Where landlords are going to be nervous, tenants are going to be nervous. What's happening is it just takes a while because the rental assistance has to go through community organizations. It's a lot of documentation. Be patient, gather it, and stay where you are. Stay in your place, because if you leave, you can't take advantage of rental assistance and the landlord isn't going to get paid. So it's in everybody's best interest just to stay put and let things happen.
Stay put, be patient, and get a hold of Mark and Lori. That's kind of what I've distilled the three things down to. Mark, what are the steps a landlord will need to take to evict a tenant under the new laws passed by the legislature?
Yeah, so that's going to depend largely on the type of eviction, the reason for the eviction. So if the landlord is alleging non-payment of rent, then there's a number of additional steps that need to be taken under Senate Bill 5160 and the Bridge Proclamation. Those include offering the tenant a reasonable repayment plan. Senate Bill 5160 sets certain limits on the repayment plan, including it could only be up to 1/3 of the monthly rent. So landlords need to pay attention to those requirements. If the tenant and the landlord cannot reach a reasonable repayment plan, then the landlord has to go through the ERPP process. And that's where the tenant and the landlord come together and try to work out their differences. So those are the additional steps for non-payment of rent. When it comes to the evictions that are based on other reasons other than non-payment of rent, so breach of lease terms, unauthorized occupants, perhaps a tenant is causing a nuisance, things like that can proceed like normal evictions can. And the Bridge Proclamation allows that to happen. The real protections are for the non-payment of rent cases. The other types of evictions, landlords are going to be pretty familiar with the process for those.
So Mark, what about raising rent and charging late fees? What kind of protection or what's happening in that arena?
Yeah, and that's an issue that's going to come to the forefront here really fast, because the moratorium that was in place for 18 months froze any sort of rent increase. And so now landlords, we've seen the housing market here locally in Pierce County. Landlords are, eager to raise rent. And tenants never want to see their rent raised. Some are living on very fixed incomes. What the Bridge Proclamation does is it lifted that freeze that the moratorium had on rent increases. So now landlords are able to increase rent again. However, they are still bound by Washington state law that provides certain restrictions on the amount of rent increase, and including the time frame. Tenants must be given at least 60 days written notice prior to any rent increase by a landlord. So that is where the tenants are at now. Is tenants and landlords are both at just regular Washington law as far as rent increases go, because the Bridge Proclamation allows these to begin again.
Boy, it is such a lesson in navigating the gray when you start talking about, raising and rent and late fees, which brings me, Lori, is Tacoma Pro Bono's Housing Justice Project ready with that right to counsel cases under the new laws, and how will that work? And when we say right to counsel, that means tenants are saying, hey, I need someone to represent me.
That's right. The new law says anyone who is indigent, who is facing an eviction hearing, is entitled to representation. by our Housing Justice Project. And that's the pieces of that are being put together, but we are ready to help people now. Housing Justice Project actually now has its own address, which is awesome. So we've hired a number of really incredible attorneys. So we are ready, and we want people to be aware of it, because Washington is the first state in the union to have this for the whole state. It's just a huge piece of progress for us. So we want people to know about it. We want you to know we're here. We want you to know we've got your back, and contact us.
So when I say that you've been singing that from the rooftops, I want to talk about Tacoma Pro Bono worked with Tacoma Refugee Choir, which who doesn't love Tacoma Refugee Choir, and Stressed Out Entertainment, I love that phrase, to create a compelling music video about eviction of all things. Why not? In my day and age, we learned about conjunctions and things like that through music. So where can we find this video, Lori?
Yes, go watch the video. It's awesome. It's a good place to get it is off of our homepage. The song is called We've Got Your Back, and it's just right there in the middle of our homepage. If you click on that and click there, you will get to YouTube and you can watch and listen.
I love that. Well, we've been showing the website across both of your faces in a ticker, so people know how to get a hold of you. And there's also a telephone number they can call as well if they don't have a computer, because Tacoma Pro Bono is all about lowering barriers. Thank you, both of you, so very much for taking the time to do this. You probably have at least 5 voicemails in this short time that we've been together that you have to answer. So I thank you so very much, and please take care of yourselves because we need you.
Thank you, Amanda.
Thanks so much, Amanda.